story stopped me in my tracks this week. One of the world's biggest cruise ships making a U-turn back to Miami after an onboard brawl, and Carnival finally backtracks, well, kind of, on their wildly unpopular VIFP loyalty rewards program overhaul. Plus, sadly, Royal Caribbean extending its pause again to a popular destination, Virgin's shiny new ship, a surprise celebrity cancellation, some new Carnival deployments that are pretty exciting, and a secret hack to save big on Royal Caribbean. Whew, we've got a week, so let's dive right in. Hi, I'm Melissa, a university professor who loves to cruise and who loves to talk ship. Wonder of the Seas had just left Miami earlier this week on September 14th on a 4-night Bahamas cruise, what some would call a booze cruise for these shorter cruises, when an argument broke out and escalated into a physical altercation. Now, cruise ship brawls sadly are not uncommon. It seems like they're happening more and more often, but this one was exceptional. It was pretty bad. 2 adult passengers were injured enough to need hospital treatment once the ship returned to port. The ship's captain turned that vessel around and returned to Port Miami, where police and medical staff boarded. Now, there's interesting conflicting information out there, but according to alleged cruise passengers on Reddit who saw some of these things firsthand, they described things like a woman being wheeled off with some type of leg or ankle injury, possibly broken, and, quote, blood everywhere. One passenger posted that a ship's officer said there were at least 2 incidents and 2 major injuries, one with a lady that had some broken foot/ankle that remains to be seen exactly what that was, and another was just a regular fight. Another passenger wrote that it was a family group that was escorted off with their suitcases by security. Now, according to these onboard rumors, again, while details are unclear, and of course Royal Caribbean isn't saying much, security and guest services were swamped with reports and footage, so I'm sure they're trying to piece together what exactly happened. But it was dramatic enough that most of the public spaces on the ship were dead quiet for the rest of the day. Royal Caribbean did confirm that their team provided medical care to the adult guests who were involved in an altercation on board, and the guests were treated for their injuries. They also say that they notified local law enforcement and are cooperating with an investigation. Now, fortunately, the sailing was able to resume. Apparently, the fight happened not long after the ship set sail, and so they were able to turn back to Port Miami, let those that needed it get medical care, and some people probably get arrested, and nothing on the cruise was delayed. They were able to continue as scheduled. So cruise fights, they don't just happen on Carnival, and they unfortunately seem to be happening more and more and more. But I want to know what you think. Are cruise lines doing enough to curtail this type of behavior? What do you think is the culprit? And more importantly, what do you think is the fix? In other Royal Caribbean news, Royal Caribbean has extended another cancellation of its beloved port, and I'm talking about Labadee. Royal Caribbean has confirmed that it will extend its suspension of calls to Labadee until at least April of 2026. That's really a long time away. So this isn't just a single season, it's a 1.5-year stretch of canceled calls. And this comes on top of a long stretch of off and on, and then a long duration of canceling Labadee. The private resort has been a popular stop for decades. I've been a few times. I love it. I think it's beautiful. But the U.S. State Department continues to list Haiti at level 4, which is a do not travel notification, citing crime, unrest, and kidnapping risks. So if you've ever been to Labadee, you know it is secure, it's private just for Royal Caribbean guests, but still the danger is it's too much to take the risk. Now, guests who were booked on Labadee itineraries are now being rerouted to other Caribbean ports or given additional sea days. So I want to know, have you been to Labadee, and have you tried to go and had your call canceled? Let me know in the comments. Enough about Royal Caribbean. Now let's talk some Carnival news. Carnival has been doing a little bit of damage control when it comes to loyalty. This week, they finally announced some enhancements to their newly announced from earlier this summer Carnival Rewards program after a summer of very passionate, shall we say, backlash from their loyal cruisers, namely their Platinum and Diamond cruisers. Now, the big news here, diamonds are forever. Happy for Carnival Diamond status cruisers, because this new change means now they get to keep Diamond for life. Although I don't know if I would trust Carnival, because for life seems to be a tenuous term with them. But they get to keep Diamond, supposedly no questions asked. Now, they did throw a bone to us Platinum cruisers. Full disclosure, I am a Platinum cruiser for Carnival. I am very unhappy about these changes. I've been very vocal about it. They threw us a bone. Unfortunately, we don't get to retain our status. They also did not extend our status. Platinum guests now get a somewhat head start to regaining our Platinum status once the new program rolls out, because originally we were going to lose our status completely and have to start over. Now, the bone that Carnival's throwing to us is that we're going to start at Gold. So that's something that's kind of meaningful, I guess. But for a lot of Platinum cruisers, me included, it's just not enough. And it's a slap on top of a slap on the face. Now, Carnival's been framing this as, hey, we've been listening to our loyal guests, but we're also going to still move forward with this updated system. Now, I will say, if you are close to Diamond, now is the time to try to get Diamond, unless you're completely soured from Carnival, that is. And what's really interesting is that I've noticed in the past week on the Carnival online forums, they've been rolling out some offers to especially casino cruisers where they can earn 2 and sometimes 3 times the sail dates, basically amplifying their progress toward Diamond. So if you do a 7-day cruise, in some cases, that will count as 21 sail dates. So if you're really close between Platinum and Diamond, this may be able to allow you to close that gap in time for the rollout next year. But for a lot of cruisers, even those that are close, they say, too little, too late, you've burned us. As for me, I'm too far away from Diamond status to even bother trying, and I don't know if I would if I could, because I'm kind of not happy with Carnival. But speaking of Carnival, and some more positive news, this week they did drop some major deployment updates for 2027 and 2028. Over on the West Coast, Carnival Legend will now run a full Hawaii season out of Long Beach, offering 10 14-night Carnival Journey sailings between October 2027 and March 2028. Now, these itineraries hit all of the big Hawaiian ports: Honolulu, Maui, Kauai, Kona, Hilo, plus Ensenada in Mexico. It's the first time Carnival has committed a ship full-time to Hawaii like this. Now, over on the East Coast, Carnival Freedom is replacing Carnival Sunshine in Norfolk, Virginia. My last cruise was out of Norfolk, my first time. I loved it, I had a great time. I have a free port guide that I just finished and published. I'll drop the link in the comments and stay tuned because I have a long-form YouTube video coming soon about the Norfolk cruise port. Now, Freedom is a newer ship with a nearly identical guest capacity to Sunshine. I really like Sunshine. I've sailed on Freedom as well. Freedom is also a nice ship. But Freedom does have a slightly more modern layout and some updated amenities. So cruisers who cruise out of Norfolk are pretty happy about this. She'll kick things off in May 2027 with a 15-day Southern Caribbean cruise, then roll into 6 and 8-day Bahamas and Bermuda runs. Also, if you're going to Bermuda, I just finished that guide as well. I loved Bermuda. I'll drop the link in the comments, so check that out. Now, these moves suggest that Carnival's betting on bucket list sailings, Hawaii, and drive to convenience, Norfolk. So I want to know, do either of these things excite you, or does it not really apply? Now let's jump to Virgin Voyages, one of my favorite cruise lines, the adults only cruise line that's a little bit irreverent, a little bit different, not for everybody, but it's a really good time. This cruise line has just unveiled its newest ship, Brilliant Lady, officially kicking off her maiden season in New York. She set sail on a Bermuda run. Again, I'll drop that guide down in the comments, but the larger story is that Virgin is expanding its adult-only product into a Northeast home port. Traditionally, Virgin has sailed primarily out of Miami. Now, this is Virgin's 4th ship, and like the sister ships, it's all in on entertainment, nightlife, no kids cruising. And what I love is I think Virgin has some of the most innovative cruise ships with all of the lighting. I think they have the best staterooms. I love that iconic red hammock out on the balcony. So it's really exciting to see Virgin expand their fleet. Reviews of her debut highlight new entertainment venues. I don't love Virgin Entertainment, so hopefully this is a plus, and an expanded dining lineup, which is continuing Virgin's trend of avoiding traditional cruise dining formats. So if you've never cruised with Virgin before, they don't do the traditional MDR or main dining room. Instead, they do a bunch of specialty restaurants, and all of those are included in your fare at no extra cost, which I love about Virgin. And they also don't do buffets. And as a very staunchly anti-buffet person, buffets gross me out, I talk about it all the time, they have what's called the galley. So you order your food, they bring it to your table made fresh. So I love the way Virgin does food, but I am excited to see them mixing it up a little bit because their menus have been a little stale for the last 3 or 4 years. Now, for those who have been waiting for Virgin without having to fly to Miami, this opens the door to another home port location. So I want to know what's your take on Virgin. Have you tried it? Would you? What do you think? Let me know. Over at Celebrity Cruise Line, there is some disappointing news for planners who plan years in advance. Celebrity Cruises confirmed that their February 13th, 2027 sailing of Celebrity Silhouette out of Fort Lauderdale has been canceled to accommodate a full ship charter. By the way, I have a full review of Celebrity Silhouette and Celebrity Cruises. I'll also drop that link down in the comments. This 8-night itinerary was set to visit Curacao, Aruba, and Bonaire. I also have guides on those. Link in comments, you know that, before returning to Port Everglades. Now, affected guests obviously are disappointed, but cruise lines usually do a really good job of making it right when this kind of thing happens. Celebrity has offered cruisers on this sailing to rebook on a similar itinerary in January 2027 at their original fare, switch to another Celebrity cruise with deposit change fees waived, or cancel outright for a full refund. And fortunately, this is far enough out that most people probably don't have their airfare booked because you can't book that far out. And they also throw in some things to sweeten the pot, including a $400 onboard credit for suites and a $200 credit for Aqua Class and below. Now, Celebrity said fares will be protected at that original rate or even reduced if the new cruise is cheaper, with refunds issued if already paid in full. So I know this is really frustrating for cruisers when this happens, when you basically get booted from the ship when someone charters the ship, but you got to understand the economics of it and how much money a cruise line makes when someone charters a ship. So I understand it, and I wouldn't be too mad personally if I had this much advance notice and they offered this many concessions, but let me know what you think. Drop your comments down below. Now let's talk about a secret hack that I just learned about. I love to ball on a budget. I love money-saving hacks. I love to help people save money so they can cruise more. And this tip comes from Matt over at Royal Caribbean blog. If you don't follow Royal Caribbean blog, it's a great website. They have all kinds of great Royal Caribbean updates. So if you're loyal to Royal, you gotta be following them. So here's the scoop. Every Tuesday or Wednesday, the day can vary, Royal Caribbean will quietly update this kind of secret special PDF list of unsold last-minute cabins under a promo they call Going, Gone. Now, it's called that for a reason, because these are sailings that usually are a pretty quick turnaround, meaning departing within the next 60 days. And they're not linked anywhere on the official website, so you have to know this special URL or you have to bookmark it. Now, it was originally meant as a reference for travel agents. By the way, if you want to become a travel agent and book your own travel and make commissions, I have a guide on that. You know where to find it. But here's the thing, anyone can use it. Anyone can use this URL. Look for these deals. It's not for everyone because not everyone can just drop things and plan on a cruise 30 or 60 days out, but you can find some really good deals. I looked at the sheet for this week and there's things like an ocean view on Freedom of the Seas for under $600 and a 4-night Allure sailing for $834 for 2 people. Now, just be aware, these cruises are usually past final payment. So what that means for non-travel agents is that you will pay in full. You don't just pay a deposit, you gotta pay in full and quickly. They're also non-refundable. If you're flexible, retired, can work remotely, this could be a really great cruise hack for you to save a lot on a great cruise with Royal Caribbean. So I wanna know, do you have the tolerance or the stomach to do a last minute cruise? I've personally done a cruise last minute. My record is within 20 hours. It was stressful, but it was a lot of fun. But is it for you or not? Do you need more time to plan? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's talk ship.